In this tutorial, we will walk through the steps to create a bar chart in Minitab. Let's start with this scenario. A teacher wants to compare the number of different types of transport used by the students to see which type of transport is most used. He received the responses of 40 students from 2 different classrooms. Let's have a practical look at the data. The dataset contains information about the different types of transport used by the students. Column C1 contains the name of the classroom, while column C2 contains the variable transport. To better understand the data, it could be interesting to make some comparison between the students from classroom A and the students from classroom B. For example, it would be good to know if the students in one classroom are using more often a type of transport than the other classroom. When we want to compare the counts of several categories, we can use a bar chart. Let's do it in Minitab. So we're going to graph bar chart. First we need to choose how the bars of the chart will represent the data, and we have 3 different options, and we need to choose the most appropriate based on the data that we have in the worksheet. The first option is counts of unique values for comparing the count or frequency of the categories that are in 1 or more columns. The second option is a function of a variable, and this is for comparing a function like, for example, the sum or the average of 2 or more groups. Let's suppose that, for example, we have a column with the name of different airlines and another column with the number of complaints from the customers, and we want to show the average of complaints for each airline. So this is the option that should be used then for this purpose. Then we have the third option, values from a table, and this is for comparing summary data instead of raw data. So the next step is to choose the type of bar chart that we want to create. If we had just one column of categorical data, we would choose simple. But considering that we have more than one column of categorical data, then we have 2 choices. We can choose a cluster or stack. We're going to see the 3 of them. Let's start with simple. So it means that we are going to analyze a specific column in the worksheet. So I select simple, I click OK. We're going to analyze transport, so I select transport, and then I click OK, and you can see that Minitab is showing the chart in which we have the split of the different types of transport. Now, by default, Minitab is showing the count, but if we want to see the percentage, we just need to right-click on the chart, go into Graph Options, and we select Show Y as a %. And if we want to see the values on the top of the bars, we just need to right-click on the chart, click Add, and then we choose Data Labels. And we keep the default one, use Y value labels. Now, what this chart is telling us is that 22.5% of the students are using the bike, 45% of them the bus, and 32.5% the train. What about if we want to know what % of the students that travel by bus are from classroom A and what % are from classroom B? To get the information, we need to create a cluster chart because we need to group the bars into separate sets. Let's do it. We're going to Graph, Bar Chart. This time we choose Cluster. Click OK. We enter the first variable transport, then Classroom. We click OK. And you can see, I'm going to put the 2 charts one next to the other. So we can see that now we have this chart that is showing the different students from the different classrooms and the split by the types of transport. So Minitab by default is showing the count. As I said before, if we want to see the y-axis in %, we just need to right-click on the chart, and then we go into Graph Options, and we click on Show Y as a %. And if we want to see the values on the top, right-click, Add Data Labels, and then we keep the default one. We click OK. So now we enriched the analysis with this new information. We know from the first chart that 45% of the students are using the bus, and with this new chart we can see that 15% of them are from classroom A and 15% of the students that are using the bus are from classroom B. We can have the possibility as well to invert the two categories. So if we go into, I can recall the dialog box by clicking this icon, and this time instead of having transported and classroom, we start with classroom and then transport. When I click OK, we can see that the third chart is showing another layout. So let's format this chart very quickly. Graph option, we want to show the percent, and we add the data labels. Okay, so we can see that we have the same information that is just represented in a different way. Another way to see this information is to stack the data. We could have done it since the beginning by choosing the stack option, or we can do it now. We just need to right click on the chart, and then we go into graph options, and we just choose the option stack innermost groups. When we click OK, then we can see that we have the same information that is represented this time into a stack chart. Another way to display this information is to use the cross tabulation, which will summarize the data in the session window. Cross tabulation are also called R by C tables, row by column tables. So let's do it. We just go into Stat, Tables, Cross Tabulation and chi-square, and then we move the variables into the appropriate areas, and we click OK. So classroom will go into row, and transport into column. When we click OK, we have different options to display. We can select a row percents. When we click OK, we can see that we have in the session window the result of this table. So what we are saying here is that from classroom A, 30% of the students, for example, are using the bus, and there are 6 of them, 6 students in classroom A that are using the bus. In classroom B, 12 students are using the bus, which represents the 60%. And the total of the students from the two classrooms that are using the bus, it's 18. This will represent a 45% of all the students. Hope this has been useful. Thank you for watching.